Hey, what's happening, everybody? Listen, this technique is so relevant for today in the salon, and quite frankly, as a discipline. I'm going to be demonstrating a bob with graduation. Not a graduated bob, it's two different techniques. This is a bob line with graduation on top of it. What it winds up doing is it creates an amazing head shape, and because it's a graduated technique, what also winds up happening is it's something super easy or easier for our clients to style because the longest hair is on the top and it has a stacking. Also worth noting, when people want body in their hair, frequently they'll ask for a lot of layers, but actually layering collapses shape. Only graduation builds up shape and is the only hair cutting technique that actually can build up volume in the haircut from a hair cutting perspective. Generally speaking, I like to cut my bob lines on the skin, but for this demonstration, I'm going to be using a mannequin, so cutting on the skin is impossible, but I will be sharing techniques to cut a nice strong blunt line in the comb, which quite frankly is something that's really relevant in today's styles. They're looking a lot heavier at the perimeters and they're a lot blunter looking, so this can be something definitely relevant and definitely usable for all of your clients in the salon. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tilt the head slightly forward. It helps so that I can cut a better line without falling victim to the recess here that happens below the occipital bone. To tilt the head forward gives me a little bit more control of that, but I also have to be mindful that the head position has in fact changed. So when I start this, one of the main things that happens when we're cutting a line in the comb where people make a mistake and where they get a result, I won't say it's a mistake, where they get a result that they might not want, is they will comb and they will enter in the comb like this and they will hold it like this and flip it out and then cut. That actually encourages all of the hair to flip out so that they wind up looking like the flying nun. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing if that's what the client wants. But if that's not your intention, the main mission is to take your comb, enter it in straight at 90, comb straight down, and then cut. And the bonus is to make sure that your comb is behind the hair. And you will comb straight down, your comb will meet the scissor and comb go straight down, you make the scissor come out, and then you begin to cut. And as I cut, I will be also retracting my blades away from where I'm cutting. That way, the hair is always stationary. If I keep my scissors stationary and just cut, what winds up happening, these are scissors, they're not a laser. So they'll wind up pushing the hair somewhat. So as a right-handed cutter, the left side will always be longer and the right side will always be rounded. If you can close your shears and retract your hand as you're doing the technique, that will make sure that everything, actually the hair stays in one position so that you can cut an accurate line. First time out, no adjustments. So there's my scissors go behind the hair, comb comes down, comb meets scissors, right there, tap, tap, there. There you go. And if you notice, I'm cutting a slightly triangular line, meaning A-line, but remember also the head is down. I do want it to be slightly A-line because if I cut something technically square, the front has less density, so it will pop up and then it will appear rounded. All right? But for this instance, I also want it slightly A-line anyway, but just know that when we're cutting this, we want to be really cognizant of being aware that the head is forward. If I cut a straight line when the head is forward, when the head lifts up, it winds up becoming a rounded line. So I want to make sure that I anticipate that while I'm cutting my line so that I make sure that the end result that I'm cutting is the end result that I want. Scissors behind the hair, comb straight down, comb meets scissors, down, tap, 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 enter in the scissors, there, retract, 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 retract. There's something else I'd like to show you. Kevin, come over here for a minute. Come on this side. All right? So something else that winds up happening, we want to make sure that we're never combing this hair straight down. We need to make sure that we're over directing it a little bit back. First of all, so that we don't cut a hole behind the ear. Second of all, so that actually what winds up happening is we're honoring the fact that the head is down. If I comb this straight down, it's actually forward when she tilts her head up, which will ensure that actually that the line is rounded. So I always want to be cognizant of where the head is so that the technique that I'm cutting is accurate to real life, not where the head is positioned in that moment so that I can execute the technique. Scissors behind the hair, comb straight down, boom, comb meets scissors, tap, 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 there, enter in, retract, retract, retract. There. Now, before I move forward, I make sure I take a right and left check. Am I balanced? Yes, I am, thank goodness. But I want to make sure that that's accurate. That's my guide section. When that's accurate, now I'm free to operate my technique the way I need to. And also, it serves as another check. If my client, in this instance a doll head, moves their head and I see that one side is longer than the other, I know that I need to adjust the client's head position because I know that the guide that I cut is dead on point. I make sure that I take sections that aren't too large so that anything that I'm cutting, I can make sure that I actually see my guide underneath it. I don't want to be flipping hair. If I'm flipping hair, the section that I'm cutting is generally far too thick, and in that instance, what it's going to wind up doing is it's going to wind up pushing the hair too much, and it's going to wind up affecting the accuracy of the technique and of the line that I'm cutting. Now again, scissors behind the hair. Make sure you comb from the root all the way down. Scissors, comb meets scissors. Tap, tap, tap. There we go. Retract, 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 retract. There we go. Now I comb this. Scissor behind the hair. Comb meets scissor all the way down. Retract, retract, retract. When I'm taking a section, I like to put one finger so that I'm connecting A to B. My finger is at the correct place, and then I just take my comb, it meets my index finger, I pull apart, and then I have an accurate section very easily. Clean sections equal clean haircuts. Messy sections equal sloppy haircuts. So I always want to make sure that my sectioning is on point because the sectioning is the roadmap to my haircut. When I get past the wide of the head, I want to switch the teeth that I'm using on my comb. Below the wide, I was using my fine teeth. Above the wide, I want to be using my wider teeth. This hair grows out of the head like this, so I want to make sure it's cut at a looser tension so that everything is falling on one plane. If I use my fine teeth at this point, it's going to have too much tension, in which case this is going to pop up, and I'm going to wind up creating some unintended graduation in my line. Notice how I keep checking my balance as I continue to cut. The worst thing that I could think to do is to find out at the end of cutting the whole back that one side is longer than the other. This is about working smarter, not harder. If I check at the end, it's going to take me twice as long to actually find what actually wasn't working or what's uneven, and it'll take me twice as long to correct it. If I can find it en route to my destination, it will be a lot easier to correct, and I'll be able to correct it quicker, more efficient and more effective behind the chair in the salon. Always honoring a little bit about where the hair wants to grow. I never want to force it in an unnatural position. If it kicks a little bit to the side, I want to honor that somewhat. I don't want to just let it do whatever it wants literally, but I do know that if we fight hair, it's not going to work for our clients when they style it. So it's better for us to be sure to actually honor what the hair is doing, and that way when our clients are operating it and our clients are styling it, then our clients can do it a lot more effectively because they're not going to be fighting their own hair. This is actually a perfect example. Kevin, come up here a little bit more. See how this side falls straighter down and this side angles a little bit more off to the side? I'm going to honor a little bit of that angle. If I force this to go straight down, when it falls into its natural position, it's going to reveal a bit of graduation here through this side. So this way I'm ensuring that my line is solid, and it's the foundation that's going to support the entire rest of the haircut. So I definitely want to make sure that that is strong and make sure that it's accurate from what the hair wants to do. Life is hard enough. Do we have to fight hair too? Please, I don't think so. And there I go. Back line, totally done, all on one plane, balanced left to right, and now I know that I'm all set up to move forward, moving into connecting my front sides to my back, and I can be very confident that by the time I'm done cutting the front, it'll be balanced. Why? Because it started from a place of balance in the back. So, as I section and I move into the sides, what I do when I'm cutting in the comb is I'll leave the head upright. If I was cutting this on the skin, which I'll do a different demo of, I would have them tilt slightly away from me so that I have more room to operate. But in this instance, this is perfect. Upright works great. If you notice, I have a slightly forward horizontal angle going on right here because it's indicative of the line that I want to create. If you also notice, I took a little cross section out of the back as well so that I can see how it relates to the back. I always want to make sure that when I'm not cutting totally in panels and then I'm aware of the whole picture. Yeah? So I have a piece of my angle going here in the back, as I can see. I will comb straight down. I'm using the wide teeth of my comb here. Again, scissors behind the hair. Bring the comb straight down. There we are. See how the comb is matching the angle of my section? And that way I know that I'm on point. So now I can move and just do my line with total confidence and retracting as I cut so that I make sure my technique is on point and I'm cutting everything as intended. I always like to stay very organized in what I'm cutting, so I will continue to move up coinciding sections in the back so that I have a strong visual. When my visual is stronger, then I know where I'm going. And when I know where I'm going, I can actually connect with my client, I can chat, I can do all of those various different things without losing my place. And this is something that I think we as hairstylists can frequently wind up doing. Has anybody out there ever wound up been doing a technique and then actually felt like they needed to tell their client to shut up because they were trying to concentrate? Usually it's because of sloppy sections and not a strong enough visual in front of you guiding your hands. Your map isn't clear enough, yeah? This section will be a little bit tricky, only in the sense that the head starts rounding in this direction and the hairline is starting to move forward. So there's going to be a slight bit of over direction through the front. I'm really going to make sure that I break this down for everybody out there so you can see exactly where the over direction begins. There, I'll take this out for the time being and just operate with this. And this is where that slight bit of over direction takes place. See how I enter the comb in at a slight angle so that I make sure that I'm combing it into place back here, not over here. She won't wear it over there. So I'll make sure that I'm angling it back slightly so that the hair is really falling and sitting in nicely into my line. See the slight over direction right here? There. And then right here. Perfect slightly A-line bob line. Just always pay attention to this quadrant right here, or this area right here. It's not a quadrant, this area, and be sure that it's over directed back a little bit so that we're making sure that we're cutting it with in mind that we're exposing the eye and exposing the face, not covering the eye and covering the face. So this side, the right side of the head is going to be really where it's going to pay off, where I do my retraction technique as I close my scissors. This is the side where I always would run into the rounding the front bit. And when I retract, I can cut dead on my line and I'll always be right on technique. If you're a left-handed cutter, your journey will be on the other side. But for me, this is where it really pays off the most, because this is the hardest one to stay accurate with your technique, is to keep your corner when you're moving and you're entering into the hair like this. It's the hardest way to do it. So to retract while I'm closing the blades is going to be essential. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing some square graduation in the back. I'm going to take my sections not exactly straight vertically. Again, I'm going to be honoring a little bit of the growth pattern, but I'm still going to be combing everything square. So that means that I'll be over directing to the previous section, and I will be cutting a graduated line, not a layered line. I have her head tilted down so that I can operate the technique more readily. When the head is upright, it can be difficult to actually get your fingers and your hands in the correct body position. So when it's upright, it allows me a lot more freedom of movement in that respect, and I can actually cut the technique a lot more accurately. So see, this side is straight down because that's the way it wants to grow. And this side I've allowed a little bit of a bevel here because the hair wants to grow out like that of the head. It's a slight adjustment, but it makes all the difference when we're operating our techniques for our clients and for where the hair actually wants to live. When we honor that, as I said before, it's easier for our clients to actually style their own hair. I want to make sure that I have enough perimeter strength when I do my graduation. So generally speaking, I find that the occipital and below usually drops out, and I'll wind up operating my graduated technique above that. Generally speaking, it's the same thing for layers, assuming you want a nice strong perimeter. If you want something a little airier, then you may want to actually layer or graduate closer to that perimeter. And I'll always double check my work and double check my sections. Remember, this is my first guide section. When this is perfect, then I can go move forward with confidence and operate the rest of my technique. Next section right next to it. And this is very important. I will be over directing to the previous. And what the previous means, Kevin, get a close-up of this. The previous is the parting between section 2 and section 1. The previous is not into section 1. If you over direct into section 1, you will wind up accruing more length and then create what we call an over directed concave, so that you'll create areas of weight behind the ear. And if you're in the right over direction, and if your over direction is correct rather, you will find that your guide section will be clear like a ruler behind your cutting section. If that guide section is at all diffused, you know that you're either standing too far left, or you're over directing too far left, or you're over directing too far right into the section. Look for that clarity of guide. Once you have that, then you can cut. And again, I'm always taking my sections small enough so that I don't have to flip hair. I can see my guide directly through the cutting section that I'm actually operating my technique on. And if you notice, I always double check. I never take for granted that I got all the hair. We can see our little weight line that's going on right there, and that's a big indicator that my technique is on point. Now I will redefine my initial guide section, and I will move to the right hand side of the section. I will still stay on this side of the head because I always want to be cutting up from the perimeter up into the interior. When I cut down, it's going to shift the way the hair flows subtly. So I want to make sure that I'm honoring the same direction, although it becomes a little trickier on this side because one has a tendency to pull hair towards them a lot more aggressively than pushing it away from you. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to operate with the same technique and the same accuracy. I can see my weight line right nice right there. I can see it. I'll check it all when it's dry, but I'm always looking for those visual checks to make sure that what I'm creating is starting to look like what I intended. All right, so now I'm going to connect the interior graduation from the front to the back now. I'm going to take my first section in the front, and it starts from the major section that separates out front from back. So I'll take a little vertical section right in front of it, and this will be my cutting section. I will take another cross section of the back, and this will be my guide to length, and this will be my guide to technique. This is the cutting, this is the guide section. The cutting section will be over-directed to the guide section, meaning it will be over-directed to this major section part that's dividing the front of the head from the back of the head. There, and there's my guide from the back. And now I was holding it straight up so that I make sure enough of the perimeter line drops out. And then I will cut from short to long. Next section, section 2. Every section I do from this moment forward will be over-directed to the initial section. I never want to lose strength through the front hairline, so I'll over-direct it back so weight swings forward. And now, because I'm combing so much hair, I'm going to be using the wide teeth of my comb again. Section 3 will be I want to make sure that this is at a slight back diagonal. I may actually let this front section drop out. I want to make sure that I don't cut a hole into the front. I'm going to look at that a little bit. I may do a little subsection that goes around the recession area so that I make sure that I don't cut any weakness into this front bit. Because it's over-directed so far back, when it falls forward, it will fall softly so that you will not see this. This will be an invisible disconnection that you will not be able to see. I'm maintaining it for strength. Let me just take a cross section right there vertically so that I can make sure that my technique was on point. And thank goodness it was. All right, so now I'm going to go onto the right side of the head and I'm going to cut that side, the interior of it. I think what's important that I missed saying on the other side is that I always position myself so I'm cutting from short to long. So on this side, if you notice, I was cutting in the front. On this side, I will actually be positioning myself behind the head so that I can always cut my angle from short to long. All right, now one of the most important things after you do a technical haircut is to really perfect it once it's dry. There's always something that's going to pop up or something that doesn't fall in line or something that has a growth pattern that just can't be controlled with the brush, which is okay because then I know, because if I can't control it, I know damn well the client can't control it, so it needs to be handled. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll address the line aspect. That's really where the gold is. So I make sure that the head is tilted forward, and then that reveals unwanted graduation here through the bottom. So in this instance, what I will do is I will make sure that my comb is in the hair so it's controlling it. So I make sure that it's not moving around. And then I wind up chipping away at just what that graduation is so that I'm perfecting my quality of line so that it's really something really strong and precise for the client. Because when we're dealing with this type of haircut, really the beauty is the line. And when the line is imperfect, a certain amount of the beauty of the haircut is then lost. So I can go right from underneath. See, and I can see exactly where it is because it's peeking out from underneath. It's saying hello, but I don't want it to say hello. I want it to say goodbye. There you go. Oh, there's some more. I make sure that I like to address the entire back first, then I can move into the sides. I work very methodically, and I find that that's served me well all over the years, and I continue to do so. Now off to the sides. In this instance, because of the side, I will now lift up the head. And I find that it's beneficial to, when I'm checking the sides, I check it in sections. I don't check it as a whole side. So I drop this down, clip this out of the way, tilt the head a little bit away from me, just like the back, so it can reveal imperfections that are on the underneath. And I perfect. And I take down the next section. Oh, I tried to take a shortcut, not gonna work. Let that be a lesson to us all. Now tilt the head away from me again. Section by section. Although these are a lot bigger sections than what I initially cut it with, they still are sections nonetheless, so that I can really break down my work and see the perfections as they arise. It's very difficult to actually find exactly what's going wrong with your haircut or what to perfect when you're dealing with the entire side of hair. It's much better to do it section by section. It seems like it takes more time, but in fact, it takes less, because you're a lot more direct with what you're trying to correct or perfect. And actually, the amount of time it takes you to go section by section saves you many minutes combing it, trying to figure out that one piece of hair that doesn't want to blend in with the pack. Now, personally, I would like to add a little bit more swing to this haircut, a little bit more looseness. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little bit of texturizing actually, to actually loosen it up and allow it to have a little bit more movement. This mannequin has some pretty thick hair. It's a perfect opportunity to do a little texturizing and really show you all what that can do and how to do it correctly so that you're not creating steps or notches or anything in your work, and you're just loosening it up for aesthetic. I never like to use texturizing to correct mistakes. I use it for aesthetic only, never for correction. So section by section, just like anything else, there's my first section, there we go, hold it right out. And the one thing I want to make sure is that I'm always cutting into or up into the hair, not down into the hair. If I texturize like this, I'll cut steps. So I want to make sure that I texturize like this so that whatever is shorter is covered by what's longer on top of it. See, no steps. And maybe I'll put in a little bit in what would be the length to lean that out a little bit. See? There we go. Section 1, Section 2. You always want to make sure that you're texturizing section by section, not just grabbing random pieces of hair, because you don't want to double texturize a section. And then I'll move through to the side. And I'll take my side section similarly to the way I cut it initially. Hold it straight up. And I'll only texturize where it needs it. See, this needs it, this doesn't. This needs it, this doesn't, this needs it. That's why I actually never texturize with thinning, blending, any of those type of shears. I always texturize with straight shears so that I can actually see and honor where the density is, where it's not, where it is, where it's not, and where it is. And if it doesn't need it, I don't do it. Another check that I like to do actually is one that deals with making sure and ensuring that my connection from front to back is actually perfect. So I'll take a cross section here too. A little bit of the front, a little bit of the back. I'll leave out my perimeter line so I make sure I don't cut a hole. And there's always a little bit of something to blend right there in that connection that goes right over where that ear is, or right behind where the ear is more specifically. Because that's where we separated out front from back. But in this instance, I want it to operate as one really cohesive, smooth haircut, and there can always be a little something there that can inhibit that free flow of movement. There. And now I've done that. Now, there we go. Section 2 in the back, right? To the right this time, not to the left. Always paying attention to where the hair is coming from. I don't want to texturize right over the ear. So I make sure I'm aware of where I am on the head so that I don't create a problem where there wasn't one in the first place. There, off to the side, same thing. Mindful texturizing, that's what I'll call it. And there is the bob with graduation. No bangs, because I wanted to keep the technique very pure this time. I'll do a separate tutorial on the bangs, I promise. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope this was useful, and I hope you get a lot out of this lesson. Have a great one. Later.